Can I ball? Can I chill? Can I stunt? Can your boy do something productive for once? Okay, so today we're going to be covering the proof of the quadratic formula. And it covers the generalization of completing the square. If you want to have an example of completing the square, check out my earlier videos. I just did one earlier, it's fire. I sound bad when I start rehearsing it, huh? Anyway, everybody knows the quadratic formula. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all over 2a. This is for an equation of ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, where a, b, and c are coefficients as well as constants, right? And x here is the 0 of our function. We're solving for the zeros of our function. Once again, the proof of the quadratic formula. So let's get into it. Don't worry. We're going to get right back to that same statement. So, our first step is to separate x. Let's separate all of our x terms and have them on one side. So, because we're solving for x in this equation, if you don't know, right? So, first step, subtract c. So, we get an ax squared plus bx is equal to negative c. You hear me fine? Now, our next step, we want to get rid of our coefficient of our highest powered term so we can solve by completing the square. So let's divide the whole equation by a, both sides. So we'll divide everything in this equation by a as long as this one by a. Now, a over a is 1, so we get an x squared plus b over ax is equal to negative c over a. Now, in order to complete the square, which again, there's an example of in my other video, we have to divide this term by 2 and square it and add that to both sides. So let's do that. So we're going to take b over a and divide it by 2. So b over a divided by 2 is equal to b over 2a. Right? Now we want to add b over 2a squared to both sides. Right? To complete the square. So we'll add it to this side, so we get an x squared plus b over a x plus b squared over 2a squared is equal to b squared over 2a squared minus c over a. Now, if you're wondering what I did here, when you have something that's squared, say you have b over 2a squared, right? You can transport this 2 to the b, this squared to the b and to the 2a. So what I mean by that is this equals b squared over 2a squared. In case you missed that step. Now, to continue our equation, I'm going to erase a little bit, just a little bit. Don't worry, just rewind it. I wish I had a bigger whiteboard like man, if I had a bigger whiteboard, I could show y'all much more things. Anyway, okay, so we're going to have x squared plus b over a x plus b squared over 2a squared is equal to b squared over 2a squared minus c over a. Plenty of room now. Okay, our next step is to factor this, right? And clearly, this is x plus b over 2a squared, right? Like, once again, watch my earlier video if you don't understand this part. And this is equal to b squared over 2a squared minus c over a. Okay, we're trying to solve for x, remember, right? So this side, we're going to eventually solve this, but I want to step over here to this side and worry about this, right? Because now we need to put these two fractions over common denominators, right? So I'm going to go ahead and multiply this out. So this is here is a b squared over 2 squared is 4, and a squared is a squared. This term right here is still negative c over a. Right? Now, we want to put these two on common denominators, right? If you don't know about common denominators, I suggest you check out, I should make another video on common denominators, but we're going to go ahead and put them on common denominators. So the only thing we're missing from over here is a 4 and an a, and we're not missing anything from over here. So we go ahead, we get b squared minus 4a times c, multiply top and bottom, over 4a squared. Perfect. Right? Now we're going to go back up and replace what's here in burgundy with what's here. We're going to replace it with burgundy again and continue right along chugging. So we get b squared minus 4ac all over 4a squared. Now, to solve for x here, we're going to need to take the square root of both sides. Right? And if we take the square root, then we don't even have to need our parentheses, we get x plus b over 2a is equal to, when we take the square root, remember we have to take plus or minus the square root. Should have wrote that in there, but it's plus or minus the square root, right? The square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 4a squared. Now once again, I'm about to show y'all a little trick here. And if you don't know this, somebody should have taught you this. I might make another video on it. Anyway, if you don't know this for real, ask somebody to teach you or look it up on YouTube. I'm going to make another video on it soon. I'll let you know. For real, ask questions. Ask questions. If you're in class with your teacher, ask all the questions you need to ask. For real. Okay, so I'm going to take the square root of the top and the bottom. So this is going to be equal to plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Because remember earlier, This was 2a squared, right? So let's go right back in and replace it. Oh, that one was ugly anyway. So we get is equal to plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now our last step is to have x. We're going to subtract, to separate x, we're going to subtract this this b over 2a. So we're going to get x is equal to negative b. And look at that. We have the same denominator, so we can just write this all as once. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And by golly, there we have it. The same thing I wrote on the board at the beginning, in blue. Back in that burgundy. I use it every time. Thank you. I'm done.